So thanks for having me. As I was briefly introduced, we can summarize stuff as I've done stuff at EA. I am specialized at this point on sports titles, but I play a hell lot of games. I don't have any nice pictures with everything on my phone, but I did try to put in there some of my favorite titles. And I'm here to talk to you about mobile and about why mobile is cool. And I'm going to start with some facts. Mobile is big. Looking at the figures right here, I think that they say it all. Over 40% of all revenue coming out of game development right now, coming out of gaming, comes from the mobile part. Although the gaming industry altogether has grown a lot in the past years, it's one of the very few industries that didn't suffer at all in the economic recession we had some years ago. Mobile takes the cake right now. And when we actually say mobile, if we look at the top charts, we see that even though there are still some cool premium titles out there, hopefully you played Monument Valley and other really flawless premium creations. Minecraft also is one of them. The top of the chart is taken by free-to-play. And I remember actually how this began some 5 or 6 years ago when I was just coming into this great industry, and free-to-play was just coming on. It was back in the Facebook days of Zynga, and then some light mobile stuff, how we all sort of had a problem with free-to-play. We had a problem with the fact that we had to turn what we thought at the point from AAA experiences where you could unlock everything and your skill took you further, to these sort of things that are for free, but we put them out for free so then we can get all money grubbing and cheat users into paying us, and we felt so bad about that. Fortunately, we've grown since then, and we learned a lot, and we learned that the most important thing in free-to-play, it's that it actually is free to play, which means that with the incredible device coverage that is nowadays everywhere, we actually succeed to put a lot more games into people's hands. Sure, they get to try a lot more titles, then they don't stick with all of them naturally, but we do provide more entertainment. And that's a very important thing for us, not to forget that we're part of the entertainment business by delivering games, and guess what? Those games are doing a hell of a lot of money. And if you look at the figures here, the numbers, they actually represent gross revenue per day. So in case any of you was wondering what amount of money games like Candy Crush or Clash Royale do, well, that's how big it is. So it's a big market, right? And the chances are that you're going to want to be part of it. And you want to be smart. You want to stay on top of stay on top of the game. And maybe you want to be smart and you want to be like Derp over here, and you want to beat all the game lofts and EAs and Namcons and all of these huge companies. Chances are you won't be beating them from the start. Maybe you won't be on top of Tencent just now. But the first step to doing any of this is actually learning from all of these guys. And first of all, looking what are these successful big companies, what are they doing, what are they pulling off, and what, if I'm a fan, if I'm an aspirant, if I'm an indie developer, or if I actually work for any of these companies, should I be considering when I'm doing mobile games? So that's why I'm here today. I want to talk to you a bit about a mobile deep dive. And the problem with these deep dives is that it's really very complex to do a mobile game. You have all these different topics and genres that you have to talk from, game design and art and UI and tech and all of that. So you could have hours and hours of presentations. You could even go to a university if you want to get into this business. And naturally, we don't have the time and place for that. So what I'm proposing you for the minutes we have together is to do a bit of quick jump through some of the most important things you have to be thinking of when developing a mobile title, and going back to before, some of the things that the biggest companies that are right now on top of the charts do it quite well. We're going to start it off really simple with the core loop. It's something quite basic, right? I mean, if we're here, you could say that, yeah, come on, we know about the core loop. It's those set of 3 or maybe more, but anyway, keep it simple, actions that you do, you get rewarded for, and then you feel good about yourself, you have developed your skill, and you do it again. And it's quite basic if you think about it, and in this basic form, it actually applies to all of the games out there, right? If we look at what Clash Royale does, where you actually have a piece of gameplay, you beat an opponent, you get a clan, you get a chest, you open it, and you upgrade your troops. Candy Crush, it's a puzzle game, but again, the core loop is very easy. You do some match 3s, you unlock a level, you feel good about yourself, maybe you brag, and then you get to the next level. So it's very important when thinking of a game to determine what's your core loop and how it matches the genre. And first, keep it simple, because chances are that you're going to want to develop it, especially if you're thinking, working, or wanting to develop a game that will be in the market for more time, not just a couple of months or a year. You have to be able to expand this core loop. And an example that I put here is for Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. It's out now in the market for about 1.5 years. It's been very successful. And again, looking at it, it's quite basic. You have to battle, you get rewards, and you upgrade everything you can. But just because this game has a pretty deep, pretty good depth, and actually the journey keeps you driving for more and more things and has you chasing things as you get into the game, they expand it quite a bit. It started out with 2 PvE experiences, with the dark side, the light side, but then you go into arenas, you go into PvP, you go into raiding, and all the rewards that you get out of there as well are quite diverse. But a very important thing to notice here is that as elaborate as this can be, it still ties back to having a very simple and very to-the-point core loop. So let's say that you have thought about your core loop, you're confident, it makes sense, your mechanics support it, it fits the audience and it fits the genre of the game that you're doing. So now you're going to make this amazing game and you have all these great ideas about your game and you're going to put everything in it and you just can't wait to deliver it to the market. And again, if I remember back when I started in this game development thing, and of course I was quite a newbie, right? And I felt so frustrated that whenever I had thought, when I thought I had these amazing ideas, people were like, yeah, that's a very good idea, just keep it and maybe we're going to deliver it in the next update or maybe in the next title. And I was like, but why? These are good ideas. The user should enjoy them now, right? They should take benefit of how smart we are collectively. And I was always sort of paced like, yeah, okay, let's do a piece and then build on top of that. And what do you know? It turns out that it makes a lot of sense, not just for the business opportunity, not just because you want to have something to deliver in 2 months or in a year, depending on what kind of title you're running, but also because it's a lot easier to handle. It's a lot easier to interact with and to actually build upon. So another advice I would give to you is make sure that your ideas scale. You don't have to deliver this wonderful castle to begin with, but rather deliver a solid basis, something that stands and something that then could tie into other mechanics. Have ideas, think about them, but hold them in until you deliver a good foundation. So you have your core loop, you're going to make it scale. Sure, it sucks to wait another 2 months until you want to put those new mechanics in. The next step is for you to think how you define your success based on what metrics. And here, actually, it's up to you to determine those things that will be able to quantify how your product actually works in the market. Here, you can go with some of the industry standards. We heard people talking today and the day before that how, especially in free-to-play, it's super important to have long-term retention, because you won't be able to get any money out of people until you are able to deliver this very good experience that lasts for a while, until they're emotionally engaged and that they're committed to your title. So you have your retention, early retention, late game retention. You also have your engagement. How often do they go into the game? How often do they do stuff? Is it 2 times a day? Maybe you're going to want to make it 6 or 7, because if it's not your game, it's something else. And of course, another very standard thing is to think about monetization, which is conversion, right? How many people out of all these that are playing my game will actually get convinced to spend in it, and out of those people that spend, how much do they spend? These are very best practices and actually industry standards, but on top of this you have other metrics that will be very specific to the type of game that you're delivering. Let's say, for example, that you're building a match 3, a puzzle game. Pretty sure you're going to want to be able to watch where users get stuck, if they get stuck, how many times they have to try the same level over and over again. Also, on the other hand, if you're doing an RPG and you have all these very cool skill trees that you delivered and they have all good choices, you're going to want to watch how users progress through all of these things. Because again, it's a big difference from where you think that your game is going to be and how it actually lands. So the point of all of this is for you to understand that as you're thinking of your game, it's very important to think how you're going to rate its success. And since you're the one that knows it best, use the best practices, but also make sure that you're watching for those metrics that are the most relevant for you and for the game. You did all of these things. Test it. You're ready to test it. Never, ever, ever take a game that you have built into a black box out without putting it to testing. And my recommendation would be to take it into very various stages of development. It all starts up with brainstorming, with concepting. You think it's fun. Ask people about them. Just sell your ideas, pitch it to as many people as possible, and see what kind of feedback you get. Moving on, you maybe start to make some nice UI or maybe some art. Test that too. Moving on, you get to build all this stuff. You need to see whether your tech stands the test of time, right, and the test of actual being out in the market. Not to forget soft launch. Soft launch is the kind of thing that once you're pretty sure with where your project is going, you still have a chance to see how it reacts in the market. And again, actually looking at best practices now, most mobile titles will go for a longer soft launch that will be between 2 to even 6 months to test the mechanics, to get all the relevant metrics out of it, and to make sure that if there are any adjustments needed, they can go in the soft launch. They don't need to happen when your product is already live and you start to really mess up a lot of users. So test your game. Mobile, as I was saying before, is now part of our everyday life. That's the beauty of it. It fits everywhere. But in order to deliver the best mobile experience, make sure you understand your users. And as you understand your users, try to think of their habits. And when you think of their habits, think of where do they actually have time in their daily routine to play the game. And again, that's the big advantage that mobile has nowadays, and that's why right now gaming has switched to, oh, I can't wait to get back from school and spend 2 hours in front of my console or PC and have this continuous experiences, to actually having your mobile in your back pocket all the time and being able to take it out for a quick 30 seconds or 2 minutes or 5 minutes or maybe even 30 minutes if you get home session. So that's why it's important for yourself to think where the mobile playtime fits into the behavior and into the pattern of your user, and then to also make sure that the type of gameplay that you have fits the schedule too. Because chances are that if you want to have this big number of sessions, but rather shorter sessions, you do need gameplay that fits exactly that. You can't allow to force your users to stay stuck in front of the mobile phone for 10 minutes, because then it's going to be easy. It's going to be an easy choice. I'm not going to play your game. I'm going to play a game that actually offers me a game experience that is a lot shorter. So think about your user, think where the phone and where playing your game fits into his schedule, and then try to form a habit. And when we get into habit formation, right now, there are actually a lot of games that do this quite well. As games become more and more complex, going back to the Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes example, as the game becomes more complex, the user needs to know what they should do in order to optimize their play. So if you have a well-established, elaborate game, think about ways to help your user for that. Give him a list of daily to-dos, of daily objectives, or stuff that he should check every day. And that will help the user enjoy the game, form a habit, and actually maximize on it as well. We talked about all of these things, but again, going back to the fact that we are in the free-to-play business, what you sell and your store offer is super important as well. And again, going back to, I don't want to take money from the users and give them something. If you ever think of it like that, I would say that it's a problem of perception and you need to reposition yourself. You're not selling users stuff that you want. You're actually selling the user something that he needs in order to have an improved game experience. And that's very important because you have to understand how the stuff that you put in the store that he will need to evolve his gameplay will give him a better play experience. So you have to think about the store well. You have to make sure that the messaging is very clear, that it's easy to understand why I want something and why it's good for me. And then you can go into all of these things like make special offers now and then and have pack anchors that will make some packs look better by comparison. But all of this ties back into the fact that you need to have a good value of proposition, which means that whenever you put up a store offer, you have to think who that offer is for, why it's relevant in his game, in his gaming life, in the life cycle, and how it helps him reach a purpose. These 4 pillars are very important whenever you plan stuff that you need to sell. And again, it's not about the selling, it's about enhancing the game experience. That's the only way that users are actually going to want to acquire those things, because they're going to feel that their experience will feel better. And the very good example I'm showing here is, again, from Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. There's a limited time event where you can get a Yoda character, and that's the kind of thing that you cannot actually purchase in the store. But in order to get him, you have to compete into this really hardcore series of events that will require you really good Jedis. So what do you know? If you want Yoda, you have to have a good set of Jedis. And this is a really good value proposition, because whenever that event is up, the game actually puts in the store something that will help you acquire that. So you are not cutting corners, you are not short-circuiting the whole acquisition loop, but rather you're helping the user with something he or she needs in order to feel better and to acquire something else. Still, putting stuff in the store isn't the only way nowadays that you can monetize on your users. Back in the days, having ads felt really cheap, because we're all coming from being AAA gamers that have paid for the product and want to savor it without any interruptions. But if you think about it, we have actually been consuming ads for a very long while. We all watch TV and we know how it feels to be interrupted into the movie, to have an ad there. But as time goes by, you actually see that it's a good thing as well to take a break every now and then. So ads are everywhere. They're on TV, they're on the street, they're in the papers that we use online, they're cutting in on our YouTube streams that we're watching. So they're part of our lives. And the recent study actually shows that over 74% of all American gamers are fine to interact with ads if this brings them something good inside the game. So ads aren't cheap. Introducing ads in a intrusive manner in the game and not giving users something that it's worth watching an ad for is cheap. So this means that it's up to you as a game developer to think what's the best way that you can introduce ads in your game such that the user is actually happy to see the opportunity to watch an ad to get something nice in the game. And again, if you need more figures to be convinced that it's actually worthwhile investing in some SDKs that will give you ads at one point or another, another study shows that if you have a game that has around 100,000 users per day, you can get $800 as well, only from ads. Now, of course, this will range on how many users you have inside the game. And again, it's very important to tie this in a manner that makes sense. But the good news is that this is a very sure way to monetize on all of those loads of users that will go inside the game and will never ever pay, because they simply haven't committed to doing this. But this doesn't mean that you can't quantify on that. By introducing ads in a smart way, you can. So, coming a bit high level, because we've been through the big picture of the core loop, into the scalability, into store and into ads. I want to come back to the high level view, and now you can see how this Nautilus shell is actually populated by all of the different things that you need to consider properly whenever you work on a game. And of course, chances are that you're not going to be able to do all of this by yourselves. So always try and get people to help you, to work with you, to have a team together. But never forget the high-level view. And the high-level view is that this is your game, and that in order to make the most of it, you need to play it. And while this may be self-sufficient and go without additional details, sometimes you might forget when you try to hit all these different check marks that you need to play the game, not only your game, you need to play the competition's game. And that's the thing, if you go through all of the testing, through asking people for opinions all the time, chances are, especially in this era where you have more community involvement and more people giving you feedback, which is good because, again, you don't want to go and develop it in a black box and coming out 2 years later and being like, this is my beautiful game. Wait, nobody likes it. You're going to end up in the opposite part where you're going to get a lot of feedback. And chances are that if you get too much feedback, that maybe you won't know what to do with it. So that's why it's important to always stay in line with your game, always have the hands-on experience, and at the end of the day, you're going to be the only one that has the intuition and the power to make decisions. So might as well be informed. Thank you.